Okay, so behind me here, this is a very rare, a very clean example of an E92 BMW 3 Series. Now, this generation is noteworthy because it is the very last generation two-door 3 Series, which is ironic because the original 3 Series, which celebrates its 50th anniversary, by the way, this year, was only available as a two-door. It was only with the E30 that BMW introduced a four-door 3 Series. Then with the E36, E46, E90, that you can choose between a two-door and a four-door 3 Series. But this was the last one. This was the very last two-door 3 Series before BMW began the practice of calling the two-door 3 Series the 4 Series. So the E92 here, of course, definitely has a very special place in BMW history. And I personally am a very big fan of this generation because actually I quite like the E90, E91, E92 generation 3 series. I really love the proportions of the car. I love the way they drive. And an interesting fun fact, the chief designer of the E90 series is Joji Nagashima, the very same person who was in charge of designing the E39. Still my favorite BMW. So this example here is, well, it's a facelift and it is very rare in Malaysia. Not only, number one, to find a facelift E92, but also one in this condition, non-M Sport, clean looking. Many E92s in Malaysia, even if they did not leave their factory as M Sport, would have undergone M Sport conversion by their owner. So this one didn't. This one is kept in non-M Sport configuration. And not only do I like the non-M Sport look better, I also like the non-M Sport dynamics better because the chassis dynamics, the springs, the dampers, the suspension setup is a lot more forgiving in the non-M Sport version compared to the M Sport. Now, the thing is this, the E90 platform, right, is already a very rigid platform. It's a very stable platform. So my theory always has been, or my opinion always has been that the E90 is a solid enough platform that you don't need M Sport suspension to make the handling sparkle. In fact, you can let the stiff chassis do the work and allow some pliancy, allow some softness to the suspension so that you get a bit more play. It allows the suspension to breathe better in normal road conditions. So let's take a closer look at this car now, shall we? So this is the facelift and you can see it's all clean. It's a very, very clean example. It's the non-M Sport, very rare to see one in this condition. I'm honestly quite tempted by this. Actually, this car really is a coupe that really suits my tastes in terms of the design and in terms of the presentation. And this is a very simple 5-spoke design that you see plenty of these in the local spec 323i. No keyless entry, but this is something that there are many experts out there that can install aftermarket for you. So no problem. And check this out, Expel. So this owner obviously spends a lot of good money in this car. And earlier we saw there was a DNA tuning sticker at the other window. So owner has spent good money on this car. And look at this. The interior is practically unmolested. Very little wear and tear. In fact, look at the rear seats. It's like practically nobody has ever sat on it before. Okay, it's a strict 4-seater. All the silver trim, all the plastic trims in there are in fantastic looking shape. Now, this was the early days of push button start. So you have to slot the key in and press the button. I'm honestly not a fan of that. But the good news is, cars like the E92, you can very easily, check this out. So you've got this mechanism here to hand you the seat belt. Very, very neat. So during this time period, you actually have to slot the key in and then press the button, which I think is very clumsy because there was one particular time I remember when I tested the E84 X1, which has the same starting protocol. And I remember, luckily I reached home and I left the key fob in the car the whole night. So the thing is, when it comes to push button start, I always prefer either it's like a fully keyless or use the old-fashioned start with key. that you twist and you have to pull out. But nowadays, nobody offers this kind of setup anyway. So what I'm discussing here also is mood. But what's the highlight of this car? Check this out. 6,000 kilometer mileage. And I know the owner of this car, this is genuine mileage. But how do you verify that? So look at the condition of the various touch points. The steering wheel, for example, here is very, very little to no wear and tear whatsoever. The center console, okay, all this trim, not a single scratch. Here, got a bit, right? This panel here got a bit, but all this, not a single scratch. Right? And here you can see all the buttons here are all in almost perfect condition, except for the fan speed lah. Okay, this is the most commonly adjusted button. But you see, look at all these, right? All the rest of these buttons are practically underutilized. This screen, this is not a result of mileage. This is a result of just age. This car has been sitting around for a long time, and it's not something I'm too worried about because it is something that right now it's very easy to fix. You can very easily replace the screen, or some people, they like to put an Android unit in there. I'm not a fan of that, except if you're going with this dude from the UK called Carphonics. I really like that guy's work. He basically is able to really seamlessly integrate an Android Auto or Apple CarPlay setup on top of the factory infotainment system, okay, which I really, really like. Now, you can see here, this cup holder is working. This one is stuck. I believe really is due to underutilization. And the mechanism in there has sort of like fused together somehow, okay? So look at this. Under here, all this is clean. Very, very clean. So this car is very, very underutilized. Now let's continue the walk around outside. So I've always felt the E92 Coupe, design-wise, to be a little heavy looking at the back, but that's what gives it its distinctive profile. And it's a 320i, and it's a real 320i. How do I tell that? Because the single tailpipe design. So as I've always maintained with the E93 series, the best powertrain in terms of the whole driving dynamics is actually the 323i, right? The 320d also makes a compelling alternative if you like diesel power, if you like the torque, you like the fuel efficiency. Most people like the 325i, but my favorite in the E90 family is the 323i. 320i, yeah, performance-wise, people say it's underwhelming. And also from what I know of is in terms of reliability-wise, there's a bit more maintenance requirements compared to the six-cylinder models, which is ironic, right? But of course, that being said, if you say these cars are trash, well, not exactly lah. You know, there are still a lot of E90 320i's that are running around on the road. So let's take a look inside the engine bay, shall we? So look at this. The engine terminates here, almost on top of the front axle, and you can see right here there is space for another 2 cylinders. Now, some versions of the E90 came with electric power steering, but this one is hydraulic power steering. So you can see this is the power steering reservoir. This is the coolant expansion tank. So washer fluid. This is the jump start terminal. Okay, so the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine ends here. So they've got this plastic cover come air intake. So the air intake goes from under the kidney grills through here and inside the airbox right there. Okay, so that over there is the oil filter housing. Got a bit of leak here. So I showed this engine bay to Tana earlier. He tells me that it looks like the leak comes from the intake manifold. So you probably want to inspect the exhaust recirculation as well as the PCV valve. But the only way to be sure of course, is that you want to put this car through a proper pre-purchase inspection before committing to get it. Okay, so I know my good friend Mike has done a bit of magic on this car. So can he lift this infamous N46 2-liter 4-cylinder NA to perform with at least acceptable approximation of a 6-cylinder? And well, the initial impression is that the takeoff from standstill is actually decent. So it doesn't feel labored when you start off, right? So right now I've got a clear stretch of road. Just give it a bit of a heavy foot on the throttle. Okay, not very fast, but the engine is quite free revving. So Mike, if you are watching this, kudos, good job. Very good job, Mike, because we know that this is not the most sprightly engine BMW has to offer, but Mike's work has made this engine quite free revving. So well done on him there. And now, in terms of the driving sensations, as I mentioned, I always preferred the E90 Generation 3 Series without M Sport suspension. Why? Because the body, the chassis of this generation is already very solid. You don't need to accompany it with stiff suspension. Because I remember driving the 320D M Sport and it was stiff as hell. It was outright almost, I would say, unpleasant in day-to-day driving. But in a non-M Sport E90, I find that the balance between ride and handling to be, I would say, almost spot on, because the stiff chassis already gives the car very, very good body control. And the soft suspension, what it does is that it enables the chassis to place the wheels better on the road. So the thing is, outside of a racetrack, there's no way you can get super smooth surface. Even if you take a fast corner or so, there may be some unevenness, some undulations. And that is where you need a forgiving suspension setup in order for your car to maintain its calmness on the move, in order to be able to maintain a sense of control. In fact, out in the real world, you need some form of compliance from the suspension to actually go fast. Now, coming up to a U-turn, I'm going to just take this U-turn here. Yeah, so the suspension actually copes very well with uneven road surfaces. And thanks to Mike's work, the engine is a willing revver. So I would say this, at the very least, despite my overwhelming preference for six-cylinder engines, I do have to concede that this one, it does not feel underpowered. But yeah, when you're already cruising and you need to kick down, yeah, that's when you need to put a bit more work. You need to full throttle it a bit. But okay lah, I would say this, the engine, it feels faster. It feels there's more speed in this car compared to my 520i, right? So I'll give it that. So admittedly, this 320i, this is not the most sought after powertrain combo of the E90 family. But I would have to say this, driving this car for a few kilometers, this engine is not as rough as expected, and neither is it as underpowered as I thought it would be. Yes, there are times you need to learn how to carry the momentum of the car, but I suspect a lot of this has to do with Mike's work. His tuning has made the engine a lot more free revving. So the good thing is that it means that the day-to-day drivability of this car is superior to most other 320i's out there. The point of consideration with this car is this. Will I tell you that this car is a better buy than a 323 or a 325 or a 335? I'm not going to tell you that. Even though I'm going to make money selling this car, I'm not going to tell you that this is better than a 323 or a 325. It's not. What I'm saying is that this car, if you're looking at a 320, this is number one. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. It does not feel like a slow car. It feels peppy enough to keep up with day-to-day traffic. And the fact that this is a genuine low mileage car, that gives you something to consider, because what you're getting, the real benefit of this low mileage car is that you're getting a car with a very fresh interior, right? All the interior plastics, except for the iDrive screen, all the interior plastics are basically, I would say, almost as good as showroom condition. Now, what is it that you will need to watch out for if you buy a genuine low mileage car? And this applies not just for this car, but for any low mileage car in general, lower than normal mileage car. Number one, I would advise that you check all the tires, you check all the rubber parts, you check all the fluids and all that, because you don't know how diligent the previous owner has been in servicing the car. But this particular car from what I've seen just now, complete service records are available for inspection. And yeah, so if you're interested to check this car out, do fill in the form in the description section below. My team will be in touch. And of course, if you are looking to sell your own car and you would like to get back at least 85-90% of your car's resale value, good news. We have got the Sun Car Market coming up on September 21st. Bring your car over, sell it there for free, and if you happen to find your own buyer and transact, no charges. Okay, only if you need to use our services for name transfer or the JPJ process, bank loan application, that's when you pay a small processing fee. But if you transact yourself, you handle everything yourself, no charges. So if you're interested in that, fill in the form in the description section below. My team will be in touch. All right, and I look forward to see you in the next video.